Hello and welcome to Channels Beam on Channels Television. I'm Victor Matthias. Today on the program, we are going to be looking at the effect of COVID-19 as it takes its toll on economies and the livelihood of people. However, donations from private individuals, organizations, and developed nations continue to pour in, so African countries can cushion the effect of the pandemic. On the program today, we will be finding out how much has been donated so far and how these donations have been distributed in Nigeria and some African countries, as well as how civil society groups are monitoring the process to ensure transparency and accountability. But before we begin the findings, let's see what made the social media trends in the past week.
With COVID-19 gradually spreading across states in Nigeria, reports of mass deaths in Kano with no cause found yet got Nigerians worried and forced them to begin to pray for the northwestern city with the hope that the cause of the deaths can be traced and stopped, while blaming and praising governments for efforts not made to curb the spread of COVID-19. Muslims the world over began fasting, which is one of the pillars of Islam, after the moon was sighted, ushering in the month of Ramadan.
Well, there you go. Those were some of the trends in the past week, and let's get the conversation started. But just before we do that, I would like to tell you that viewers at home, you can also be part of the conversation. Just join us by tweeting your thoughts at us using the hashtags Channels Television, Channels Beam, follow COVID-19 Money, as well as coronavirus. You can also tweet at Channels TV, at Channels Beam, as well as Victor_MBIDI. Well, joining us today on the program, we have from our Abuja studio, Hamzat Lawal. He is an activist who specializes in practical issues associated with climate change, open data, advocacy campaigns, and development policies. Again, he joins us from our Abuja studio. Hamzat, it's a pleasure to have you on the program today.
Thank you for having me, Victor.
Of course, you're welcome. We also have joining us via a Google Plus Hangout, we have Nancy Saibor. She is the co-founder and CEO, Actions for Development and Empowerment, founder of Empower Her Africa, and SDG. She is also an SDG advocate. She joins us via the Hangout from Yaoundé in Cameroon. Nancy, it's a pleasure to have you on the program today. Well, we also have joining us Eve Matai. She is the head of programs at Slums Information Development and Resource Centers in Kenya. She is also a public finance practitioner, a budget facilitator, and an advocate for SDGs acceleration. She joins us via Hangout from Nairobi in Kenya. Eve, it's a pleasure as well to have you on the program.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. Kickstart this conversation for us, Eve. What has the situation been in Kenya in terms of donations that have been made by well-meaning citizens of the world to those, or to cushion the effects of those of, in fact, the general citizenry as we fight this pandemic?
Okay, so far, the Kenyan government has established a COVID emergency fund, where it's a centralized area for all the funds that are coming in to be consolidated and disbursed from one central point. So far, we've gotten foreign aid from the World Bank of approximately $50 million, from the Danish government, 30 million, and from local donations, that's from the private sector and other well-wishers. It's been about $1 million in cash and also in kind. So far, we are at the point of consolidating everything and considering the legislative amendments to accommodate COVID-19. We are yet to start disbursing towards the several sectors that are supposed to handle the activities to combat the impact of COVID-19. Yes.
How are you monitoring the disbursement of these funds you made mention of?
Currently, we are solely relying on media. What the media is getting from the ministry is what is being relayed to us, which we realized is it's not wise to rely on that solely because, for instance, there was an instance whereby a local newspaper relayed the wrong information. Instead of saying the Ministry of the Treasury had released money towards certain sectors, they said they had already spent it. So there was an outcry in Kenya. People were questioning where the money went, yet the information was passed on incorrectly. It was disbursed, not spent. So over reliance on media, we are quickly realizing that it is not the right thing to do. So we are also focusing on collaborating with Ministry of Treasury so that we can get the appropriate information to relay to the citizens.
All right. Again, let me try and get Nancy. Nancy, again, thanks for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Of course, of course. So what is your source of information now in terms of funds that have been donated and how you're tracking them in Cameroon?
Okay, our source of information is the Ministry of Public Health because that is the ministry in charge of health issues in the country. So that's the only source of information we have concerning the donations because they do a weekly or daily press review of all the donations they've collected, both finances and materials. So the last time the government communicated, the Ministry of Public Health communicated to its citizens about the total donation, we were around 930 million safer millions that have been collected already from companies and individuals. But the government is saying, the minister of the ministry is saying that he has no idea of how these funds are being managed, and he's not giving us proper information about how they're going to use the funding. So right now in Cameroon, it's very difficult to access information on how these funds are going to be used. So we're still trying to see how we could demand for explanations through hitting them on their Twitter account and on Facebook, because that is where they post daily review on how they're using the funds that have been donated to the ministry.
How effective would you say the disbursement has been so far?
Now it's kind of not coherent right now because even the information they give concerning new cases in the country is not coherent. We are kind of the citizens have lost interest in listening or reading on the press review because we have different kind of misinformation that given to us by this ministry. When we try to compare the information that he gives to international partners and what he gives to the National Assembly, it's completely different and not coherent. So we are kind of embarrassed that he's the only source of information, and we hope that they rectify this and make sure that they're transparent and accountable to what is happening concerning COVID-19 in Cameroon.
To in just a bit, but let's quickly go to our Abuja studio where Hamzat Lawal is standing by. Hamzat, how effective has the Freedom of Information Act, been at this moment?
Well, of course, because we're all sitting at home and enforcing social distance, so we can't submit letter via hand to government MDS because you won't find anyone there. But of course, we know that in this law, you have what you call proactive disclosure. I must commend the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 because they give us daily briefing on incident report and what they're doing in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and NCDC. But when you look at financial spending, they've not been adequate information around how much Nigeria have mobilized, both from government, individuals and private institutions, and how are we collecting these financial resources and how would they be disbursed. The only concrete information we have is from the private sector coalition led by Alhaji Aliko Dangote, which have mobilized over 25 billion, and now they're setting up centers in Lagos, which will be handed over to the state government through the federal government. We also know that Aliko Dangote has said 23 billion will be used to procure food items.
Hamza, let me come in. Is there a cumulative amount now that has been, do you have a figure, so to speak, now, in terms of how much has been donated generally?
So Follow the Money have documented and mapped using trusted sources, so that's media and reports that have been given both by government and private institution and private individual who have tweeted about their various support. And we've documented over 89 billion, independently by Follow the Money, and this information have been fact-checked. It's also important to note that there was a fake news going around about this information around how much have been donated. That was a couple of weeks ago, and this information was allegedly released by the Ministry of Finance, which was countered at that time by the Ministry of Finance after about 72 hours, saying they have only gotten about 30 billion. But when you hear government say about 30 billion, it's not clear. So when you say about 30 billion, are you saying that over 30 billion or 29.5 billion? So it's not clear. And mind you, as we've tackled COVID-19, we're also tackling fake news. And the fact that government is not responsive in providing timely information around financial data, it's leaving room for mischief makers in Nigeria.
All right. So how would you say the disbursement? I mean, we've seen the 20,000 naira being given to some poor and vulnerable, which was pretty much like a backlog. But also, we've also seen food being distributed to also poor and vulnerable. But how would you say that process has been?
We need to understand that the conditional cash transfer, I call it the conditional cash payment because this was payment being given from hand to hand. It's a different government intervention, and it's not part of palliative that government is providing for COVID-19. But yes, we've seen that the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs is coordinating that effort. Foods have been distributed, to states, and then states would now be left to distribute this food across their local government. Our colleagues, Follow the Money members across the 36 states are monitoring this effort and following all these measures put in place by state government. Just recently, before we came on air, our colleague in Kwara State have posted on social media, monitoring the distribution of this palliative. I'm also aware that the FCT administration have also disbursed some palliative to some area council, and that of Ama could happen today or tomorrow.
Quickly, Nancy, let me just ask now. You said there's been a misrepresentation of figures and how things are being done, in Cameroon. So is civil society doing anything to ensure that you have a single or a unified source of information when things happen?
No, it's very, like I said earlier, it's difficult to have all this information because government at this point does not work with civil society organizations. So the Ministry of Public Health is the only source of information we have right now concerning the statistics on COVID-19 in Cameroon. So we are pleading, and I'll also use this opportunity to plead with government to work with civil society organizations. So we can only fight this COVID when we are united and when we are together. One body and one person cannot fight this COVID-19. So I encourage government to include civil society organizations in every part of the country, in the 10 regions of Cameroon, to fight this pandemic, because only the ministry cannot do the whole thing. And I also want to congratulate the government of putting in place the 13 measures which are being implemented in some part of the country, but we still want more. More needs to be done for the spread of the virus to be limited in just cities, not going to come into local communities.
I agree. You can never get enough when it comes to fighting this pandemic, but just hold it there for a bit. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we'll look at how fake news is affecting the fight, as well as more legislation to also help pass information as we fight this virus. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. You're still watching Channels Beam on Channels Television. Thank you for staying with us. Well, I would like to remind viewers again at home that you can be part of the conversation just by tweeting your thoughts to us using the hashtag Channels Television, hashtag Channels Beam, follow COVID-19 money as well as coronavirus. Then you can also tweet at us at Channels TV, at Channels Beam, as well as Victor_MBIDI. That's at Victor_MBE. We still have with us our panelists in our Abuja studio as well as via the Google Plus Hangout. And let me just quickly come to you, Eve. Now, one thing that has actually made the rounds here is the fact that there is some form of misrepresentation of facts one way or the other. It's happened in Nigeria, like Hamzat said. It also happened, like you said, in Kenya as well. So that means fake news is actually playing a part here. But how can we curb that? How can we stop that? What can be done to ensure that fake news doesn't get in the way?
Okay. First of all, I feel like civil society organizations need to step in and play an oversight role when it comes to this. There's a lot of lack of belief in government statements. People are coming out and saying that there could be more cases than the government is actually letting on. So it's important that the government tries to restore faith in the government, in its citizens, because this is causing a lot of defiance, because people don't believe the virus actually exists. So they are not taking the necessary precautions to prevent themselves from contracting the virus.
Let me just quickly go to Hamzat. So looking at how fake news is pretty much being in the way as we try to fight COVID-19, what can be done? What can be done to straighten, that part?
I think government needs to rise to the occasion by providing timely information. As much as they're giving us reports of numbers of cases, numbers of people that have tested positive, people that have recovered, and sadly people that we've lost, we also need to see government provide information on how much this has cost the Nigerian people and how these resources are used judiciously. I also think that government needs to regulate the people who provide this platform. How are we putting in place stronger policy framework to WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, because these are the platforms that fake news generate from. So how is government regulating this platform and ensure that we, the users, we, the consumers, are safe, in the web? So it's important for government to be really proactive, share timely information so that we can amplify this information before fake news will get hold to people who don't even understand, basic knowledge or information. But I believe this is an opportunity for government to look inwards. And technology has shown that with the fact that we're all locked down at home, using digital tools, using various technology platforms, we can stay connected. We can share information and amplify this information while building public trust, because government cannot do it alone, but it also beckons on government to provide timely information so citizens, civil society can help amplify this information and build public trust.
Well, I like the fact that you said, government can't do it alone. So let me redirect that question to Eve, again, who is joining us via Google Plus Hangout from Nairobi in Kenya. Now, Eve, Hamzat is saying the government can't do that alone. That means there's supposed to be, or there should be, a government-citizen participation or collaboration to ensure that fake news is brought down. But in your own perspective, what do you think?
Yeah, unfortunately, during this pandemic, it's presented a situation whereby we cannot effectively conduct public participation in terms of public forums. So it is important that the public engages with the government, be it on mainstream media or social media, and also contribute to the amendments for the legislative documents that are coming out, and so that they can ensure that their sentiments or their concerns are actually represented well, so that in turn the government can utilize resources towards achieving these requirements from the public, especially the informal settlements who heavily rely on public services to ensure that they survive.
Nancy, quickly, just as we wind down now, what has been the response of people in terms of, respecting the government directives to stay at home, keep social distancing, and all of those things that would help in curbing the spread of the virus?
Yeah, citizens are really respecting the measures put in place by the government, even if they're not doing it well, because the government has put on some regulations like wearing face masks is obligatory in all public areas, and we can see people respecting that, just that they don't know how to use the mask. So that's another problem. We're supposed to work on teaching the people on how they wear their face masks and how they're supposed to really make sure that what they're wearing is really disinfected and it's properly weared. And also social distancing up to now is very difficult to practice that because we can still see when you go to markets, people don't really respect that. They still they get close to people selling food stuff. So it's very difficult to respect social distancing in Cameroon. But I can say so far we really seeing some efforts that are being made by the government in making sure that we win the fight against the pandemic in Cameroon.
All right, then I have to say thank you for joining us, Nancy Saibo from Yaoundé in Cameroon, as well as Eve Matai
Thank you.
in Nairobi in Kenya. Thanks as well for joining us today on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Of course, of course. Thanks once again. And also, I'd have to say thank you to Hamzat in our Abuja studio for sharing your thoughts as well on the program today. Hamzat.
Thank you, Victor. And let's continue following the money.
No problem. That's what you should be doing. Well, citizens also have their own part to play, but let's bring you what viewers at home watched the most on our digital video platform account. That's YouTube.
This week's most viewed videos begins with the revelation by the Kano State chairman of the NMA that religious leaders in the state do not believe in the spread of the coronavirus.
Religious leaders did not really agree with or believe in the coronavirus spread, and as such, the information going around is different.
Fourth Spot sees the governor of Kogi State clearing the air on why he believes people felt the late president's chief of staff was a cabal.
If you say cabal, in one way or the other, yes, you will have one or two persons that is loyal to you, who is ready to dare the devil and ensure that the job is done. So if you call it a cabal, it depends on the angle you're looking at it from.
Third place is taken by the lamentation of Nigerians during the lockdown as hunger and crime increase.
We are hungry for us. There's something we can say for 14 days. We cannot able to go work. We cannot able to do our business. Government help us.
The evacuation of UK and US citizens from Nigeria by their government takes second position. While the most viewed video in the past week is A Blast from the Past, a documentary on Nigerians jailed in China.
And that's the program this week. Don't forget to keep washing your hands, maintain social distance and personal hygiene as you join the hands to flatten the curve. I'm Victor Matthias. Thank you for watching.